Biodiversity Fund paper. Could they come forward? And Phil, could I ask you to introduce this as the... Oh, no, you're not the chair of that. No. Pauline, could I invite you to introduce this paper as the chair of the committee? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, this is... this actually came out of the independent hearings plan for the district plan, and what happened was they've identified quite a few sites of ecological significance, at least 130 I believe. So we're looking at this as perhaps treating these sites of ecological significance in a similar way that we would treat our heritage buildings in Christchurch and Canterbury, and we want to protect them, ensure their survival for the future. And I just want to, there was a couple of queries about 5.6 in the report, whether that actually was additional money or part of this, and in actual fact the 200,000 is separate from that other funding that's going to these other groups. So that's just to clarify that. The 200's over and above. And the recommendation, the committee supported this, but we also supported the ITI committee having the delegation for this, administering this fund, and it's a contestable fund, so people apply for it. But we will also monitor the applications and perhaps look at making a further recommendation at the LTP. Staff may have additional. Have I missed anything out?
No, that's a very good overview, thank you.
Very good. Yanni?
Thank you. Just to pick up on the point that Councillor Cotter has raised, I was just a little bit confused from reading the report as to what was happening in terms of 5.6, in terms of the other financial support, whether that was separate or included in the 200,000.
No, that's existing funding and that's separate. So that's funding for general conservation and maintenance works in those areas looked after by those trusts. It's not about the significant ecological sites that are identified and protected in the district plan.
Right, so the quantum goes from 80,000 to 200,000 per year, basically.
So there's 80,000 this year?
Yeah.
In this year, and yes, in the future, 200,000.
And is that for every year, or is it just a one-off for this financial year?
It's a one-off for this financial year, but we're proposing that we put the same grant into the long-term plan.
Okay, thank you. And just the final question is, will this fund in any way be able to be used to encourage the intensification of farming and dairying? As we've seen, there has been some criticism of not this fund, but other funds similar to this that have been used in a way that produces an intensification of dairying.
I can't think of a way it could be. I mean, first of all, you have to have a significant ecological site on your property, and the money is only for works to do with that site, such as pest control, fencing.
Right.
It's to enhance biodiversity, and it also sits alongside the Christchurch West Melton and the Banks Peninsula water zone management committees, who also provide funding for biodiversity. So it's a kind of a partnership fund, really.
Well, it was one of those zones committees that did make that funding grant that enabled more intensification of dairying. So is there any way we can put a criteria in place that that doesn't happen as part of this fund?
I suspect if there was a biodiversity fund, the biodiversity funding from the zone committees is about waterways. So it's about improving waterways and waterways quality and planting riparian strips and sensitive catchments. That may or may not be associated with dairy farming, but the funding is only to go into the waterways work. It doesn't go into the production farming side.
Phil, and then Vicky.
Thanks, Helen. Just a wee bit of clarification, because clearly there's a parallel, as Pauline referred to, with the Heritage Fund, and particularly I think the Heritage Improvement Grants. So with that fund, clearly the funding is paid out after the work is done. But for the Biodiversity Fund, it'd be somewhat different?
No, it'd be the same. So the money would be allocated based on the applications that come through, but it wouldn't be paid until they'd demonstrated the work had been done.
The work had been completed too. Okay, thank you.
Vicky?
Just to follow up Yanni's point, and I can't imagine that it could be used on dairying, but I'm sure we could put into the rules that it couldn't be, couldn't we?
I'm sure we could.
I'm sure we should.
Certainly. I'll make note.
Good, thank you.
Are there any further questions? Pauline, would you like to move the recommendation? Would someone like to second that? Sarah? I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much.